Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick, and we're here for the very first of our Concerns series. And joining me for that is Kisuke. Kisuke, appreciate you doing it. And you want to talk about the offensive line replacements, a great first concern to choose here. Tell us, why'd you pick this one for starters?
I've always had an interest in the offensive line. In fact, I've owned like 5 Raisin jerseys throughout, my time following the Ravens, which is since they came to town. But I had a Marshawn Yanda jersey, and weirdly enough, like when I would like go to like a sports bar to like watch the game in my jersey, they'd be like, "Oh, you got an offensive line jersey, cool!" And I'm like, "Huh." I didn't think this jersey was going to get quite as much attention as it has, and it was like in the middle of his stretch. It was before they were like, oh, he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. At the time, they were just like, oh, he's really good, and I was like, yeah. I try not to get like the marquee player jersey, but still get a really good one. I had a Jarrett Johnson jersey, so sometimes I strike and miss, swing and miss. I also have a Mark Clayton jersey. So,
oh yeah, my wife has a Travis Taylor jersey. Okay, if we're getting into funny jersey stories, I'm going to take just a minute on this. But we went off to we're going to Super Bowl 35, and I wanted to have my wife to have a Ravens jersey to wear. All right, so we went to the store, and I had a Ray Lewis jersey already, and they were out of everything. They didn't have any jerseys except for Tony Banks. Okay. And then all of a sudden, we didn't want a Tony Banks jersey for obvious reasons at that point. But at that, as exactly as we were there, somebody either called on the phone or had to be told that their jersey for Travis Taylor was not available, and Maureen took that. It was a medium Travis Taylor, so it fit her at the time, and that was good. It would still fit her. I don't want to be bad about this, but anyway, that's jersey story number one. The other one I love is what people did with their Tony Banks jerseys after the fact. So I saw 2 people have number 12 and number 18 jerseys, and number 18, of course, Elvis Grbac. Number 12, Tony Banks. A lot of people turned the Tony Banks jerseys into 12th man jerseys. They would actually have additional tape or sew on a letter themselves to put that on, but they wanted to get rid of the Banks letters up there and make changes. And the most creative use I ever saw of an 18 jersey, and I think this was actually made custom, so I don't think this is actually an Elvis Grbac replacement, was Hope She's 18.
Wow. That's hilarious.
It was pretty good. It was funny. All right, so let's talk about the offensive line this year for the Baltimore Ravens. Ronnie Stanley still be at left tackle. As of this time, and we're recording this on July 1st, we have a left guard that we believe will be Andrew Voorhees. We agree on that, Kisuke?
Yes.
Okay. We have Linderbaum, the returner, returning at center. Hopefully nothing goes wrong there. At right guard, it's a little bit unknown because the OTAs, some different players have taken time at right guard, as I've been told. But I think most of us expect Ben Cleveland, a 4th-year player, to take that position. Certainly, they've groomed him for that, and it really appears that he's now ready to take that over. And then at right tackle, we'll have the rookie at some point, Roger Rosengarten, probably stepping in for Morgan Moses, but I'm not sure that's going to happen right away. With the Ravens have a very strong rookies got to earn it kind of a way about them. Am I jumping the gun to assume that Roger Rosengarten is going to be the right tackle in week 1?
I think it'll really depend on how preseason goes. The Ravens are weird about rookies that aren't first-round picks. First-round picks, for the most part, they seem to want them to play. But second on down, depends on how you look in preseason and I guess training camp. So in this case, I expect him to win the job over Daniel Faalele, and I think Daniel Faalele is the only real competition. There's a chance that they'll put Josh Jones in his competition. Like there's a maybe about that. But I don't really expect, because he's a Swiss Army knife. I think they want to use him like they use Patrick McCarry. Yeah, McCarry. So I don't think they want him to be a starter. I think they want him to be like I can plug you anywhere but center backup. But if they do want to, choose the best available, they'll have all three in the competition. But I expect it to be between Roger Rosengarten and Daniel Faalele. And then it'll depend on how Todd Monken really wants the offensive line to function, in which case I think Roger Rosengarten has the best chance based on what Todd Monken wants to do.
There are some reasons why this situation is a little bit different with the 2018 Orlando Brown situation. So Orlando Brown waited half a season to get his job, and frankly, it's ridiculous for him to be waiting behind James Hurst. But for whatever reason, they wanted to do it that way, and they took a half season of Hurst, gave him a lot of help. He didn't even play that poorly, honestly, over the period. But Orlando Brown, not clearly the much better player, and they waited at that time. That 2018 team, in a sense, could afford to wait. I mean, it was a good team, and they did get the right player on the field eventually, but they weren't a got to win now organization. They weren't a team where the backup was terrible beyond belief. He had been at times quite bad, but he wasn't terrible. At that point, because they're hoping they could get away with him next to Moshe Yanda. I don't believe this team really can wait in the same way for two major reasons, and they're a little different. So the first reason is that this team needs to win now. The 2024 Ravens, I think we agree with that. But the other is they have to know where the 2025 situation is like at left tackle really as early as possible so they can make the changes they need and make moves they need to for next year and make decisions they need to for next year. So if they go through this season and they don't know who Roger Rosengarten is as a left tackle, is he going to work out a right tackle? First of all, they need to know that. But then they need to see, does his play really map to the left side at the NFL level in terms of being able to hold up anchor-wise to the guys he'd face on that side?
Yeah, I do think right now the plan would probably be to move Roger Rosengarten back to his natural position of left tackle in 2025, depending on how it works out this year. But I think the overall plan would be to move him back to his natural position of left tackle after Ronnie Stanley moves on. I also think it's a foregone conclusion that Ronnie Stanley will not be back in 2025.
Very likely.
No matter what he does, no matter how good of a season. If he has a great season, he's just going to get paid somewhere else. If he has a bad season, nobody's going to want him. If he has something in between, I don't really see him coming back for whatever we decide to throw him, because he can get probably more somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, he'd have to really value being here in Baltimore somehow, playing with Lamar Jackson or whatever it might be. But I think you're probably right that it's unlikely. And if whatever they're going to do, if they need that left tackle, if they find they need the left tackle, they can make the deal during the season, and they have a significant 6 to 7 month advantage probably in figuring out, not quite that much. Let's call it a 4-month advantage. If free agency starts in March, the earliest they'd probably do it for given history is probably around the 1st of December. I think that they have that period of time to try and figure out if they want to sign Ronnie.
Yeah. But given the injury history, I just don't see why you would want to bring him back.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's been tough, and I wish him nothing but the best. I wish he could stay with the Ravens because I think the path is still there, although it's a little convoluted at this point, for him to make the Ring of Honor here. And moving in the NFL to a new team is always difficult. Free agents tend to be older players. They tend to be in decline phases of their careers. They tend to really disappoint their new teams in a lot of ways. And, at least I think people in Baltimore really understand just how tragic what happened to Ronnie was, despite the fact that Ravens fans had to live through a very bad contract for the player. But I think we understand that. And I think, we'd still be the loudest cheerers were he to make the Ring of Honor here by playing another 3 years in Baltimore, say.
Off topic, but a different sport. I think it's kind of like, at least idealistically, similar to the Golden State Warriors losing Klay Thompson.
Okay.
Like Klay Thompson, he's going to be gone. Like he's already. I don't know what team he's going to, but they started the first day of free agency yesterday. The Warriors offered him a contract. He said it was disrespectful to contract that they offered him. I know last year they offered him $48 million for 2 years. He said that was a slap in the face, but then his play dropped off. And he had 2 catastrophic injuries back to back. And they gave him a massive, they gave him a max deal contract to re-sign him the last time. And they knew they weren't going to have him for a season. And it actually turned out to be 2 seasons. Right. So we overpaid you because you're a team player and you're part of the Splash Brothers. But now you're older and we know you don't play defense the way you used to. I can't give you this contract you want. Right? I can give you this other contract. We want you to come back, but I'm not giving you a max deal.
That's a very hard thing for a lot of pro athletes to deal with, but it's what can you do for me tomorrow, not what did you do for me yesterday. It really is a very tough phase of contractual life for players to move into. And it's frankly, I think it's why the Ravens have not signed a lot of players that age. They're very specific about when they do it. They're fishing in the bargain bin when they do, but they're not signing guys to 4-year, $80 million deals starting at age 32. So we'll see how that goes. And honestly, the next player that this really becomes a significant issue for at the Ravens may be Lamar Jackson. He might not be worth the same money for his next contract. At age 26, you got a 5-year deal for record money, and that may not happen again.
I would agree as far as offensive players, but I would say Marlon Humphreys is definitely next.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Mark Andrews could be another one who will get a much smaller contract the next time around as well. Okay, but let's take it back to the offensive line. I'm sorry, we got to return this because we got limits on how long you do. The Ravens have often liked to make these 1-for-1 offensive line changes during the season to maximize continuity. They want to basically have one backup ready to step in for one and not have two guys. A guy who could step in at either of two positions, or the other one being that they don't want to have a player who moves in at left guard and then allows the left guard to move to center, such that they fix two positions with a sliding puzzle move like that. Do you think the Ravens will maintain that this season?
I think they're going to try. So it depends on how injuries happen. Like Daniel Faalele's first season, he was a project right tackle, right? And then what was the guy's name? Juan was the backup for Ronnie that year?
Villanueva?
No. Was it Villanueva?
The year before Villanueva? Because Villanueva was at right tackle, and he slid over to left tackle after Ronnie got hurt against the Raiders in 21. Are we talking about a different season?
No, I don't think it. I think Villanueva had already retired. We had the guy that's often injured, and we brought him into camp. He had a good camp. I think his name was Juan something or Dewan something.
Yeah. Why can't I do? I can't come with and he played one game.
He played
in 22.
He got hurt. Yes, he got hurt in the first game, and then we had no other options. So they were like, we're going to move this right tackle project in at left tackle. And understandably, he didn't play so well, but he's not a left tackle. So
Jawan James is who you're talking about.
Jawan James. Yeah. So it depends on injuries. Like, I think the plan is to have, a 1-for-1 at each position. Mm-hmm. Well, give or take each position. I'm kind of iffy on the right guard situation, but I don't think the plan is to slide people over unless injuries cause you to have to do that.
Okay, so let's go through the five positions. Who's the first backup in each case? We left tackle McCary.
Left tackle McCary.
Okay, left guard.
Left guard, I think it's Josh Jones.
Okay, and I'd agree with that. Josh Jones to replace Voorhees, who we're saying is the likely winner at left guard. And at center, then the replacement. This is one of the harder ones. At center, the replacement for Linderbaum if anything happens.
I think it's the rookie. What's his
Samac.
name? Samac, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if we go over to right guard, then Ben Cleveland as the starter.
Yes, but I still have Josh Jones as the primary.
Okay, I basically agree. Josh Jones is the first guard off the bench at either of those two positions. I don't think it'll be Faalele, even though he's seen some time there. And that right tackle, I'm not sure we know who the starter is yet, but let's assume it's Roger Rosengarten and he gets the job. Then you have a couple of different choices, I guess.
I think it'll be Daniel Faalele.
Okay.
Daniel Faalele has been the platoon right tackle, and I don't see that changing unless he wins the job. So I think he'll still be there.
And we talked about this a little bit in the production meeting, but we don't think necessarily there's a big chance of him winning the job, but cannot rule it out given this Ravens way of rookies got to earn it and what we talked about earlier. So now I think we've gotten to a point about
I forgot Josh Jones can also back up right tackle. So I think it's between I think Daniel Faalele would be first choice. And if he goes down, then Josh Jones.
Okay. So Josh Jones at least is the first guard backup at either spot and the second tackle backup at both spots as well.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think that makes sense. And it does give the Ravens a chance to get the season through the season with some continuity by position, though something they really value and something I think is a problem actually for a team having three replacements is building up that continuity, because I think it actually takes a matter of games played together under live fire, and this OTA time that ain't doing anything in terms of that. In fact, they won't learn the first thing about how they're really being doing the right things in terms of continuity until they get pads on, and they actually have to hand off stunting blitzers, and they have to actually pick up stunting blitzers or hand off when there are stunts. It's really a difficult thing to for them to duplicate without live fire and without actually having a opponent coming at them in anger, not the brother-in-law play you often see it at training camp.
In this particular case, I think it's helpful that they are building from within. Ben Cleveland has seen time on the field during the regular season. Daniel Faalele, we've already spoken about, has platooned at right tackle. So at least both of them have seen time on the field with the other starters that are currently on the team, with the exception of the rookies. Now, with Roger Rosengarten and, backup Nick Samac, that's where you're going to have that we're learning like on the fly. But the other two, they've seen live action. Ben Cleveland has played next to Tyler Linderbaum. They should have a good understanding of how each other is going to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. So Ben Cleveland, even though he's a new player, will certainly be in a better position with that specific relationship. In the case of Voorhees, he's got two new relationships to learn. He needs to figure out how to do combination blocks with Linderbaum. He needs to figure out how he needs to help block and process quickly in order to help block for Ronnie Stanley. That's a lot to learn. That is just
it is a lot to learn. But although he hasn't been on the field, at least according to what the Ravens are putting out there, he never left the building. He was there the entire time he was injured and has been there like basically all of the offseason. He's just been crunching film and rehabbing. So he's been studying this whole time. So I expect him, what's the saying, hit the ground running or close to it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of crawling before he walks. I think he's going to be pretty ready to go.
I would agree. I think he's the most likely to play at a level that's higher than the current incumbent. But let me toss that out. And I know you folks who are listening probably have heard this already on a couple of different things, but I'd like to hear from you, Kisuke. What's the chance that the new player at each position plays at a higher level than the 2023 Ravens had there? So at 2023 at left guard, the Ravens had John Simpson, who was steady enough, played almost all the snaps, but was not particularly great. What's the chance that Voorhees would be outplay him?
I think Voorhees is most likely an upgrade. So I'm gonna give it like a good 80 to 75% chance that he's an upgrade over John Simpson, especially because before he got injured, I think he was like supposed to be a first round pick. So first or second round pick. He was a high draft pick before he got injured. You got the red shirt year. He's been studying this whole time. I expect him to be an upgrade.
I still have some concerns over Voorhees about his frame, but I'm still at 65%. And I think that's as high as I can go on a rookie that's never stepped on an NFL field, especially considering the fact that very few rookies play exceptionally well in their first year. It almost always takes time to build up, and the Ravens are exceptionally good at developing those players. If he could play as an NFL average player in his first year, it'd be fantastic. It would be, first of all, it'd be better than Simpson by a good amount. But second of all, it would be absolutely fantastic in terms of what it means about his 4-year development path, because he'd be an unquestioned starter for those 4 years. And I think there is probably about a 40% chance he can play at an NFL average level. He doesn't quite have to play at that level to be as good as Simpson. And then we could expect growth. That would be fine too. But I think that the concern I have is mainly about frame for him. So he's one of the strongest dudes you'll ever meet. And playing strong usually means you understand some things about leverage. But he's a bench strong guy. So really, does he understand exactly how to get his pad level correct to maximize his leverage, given what he has as a in terms of advantage? Well, it's very hard for a 6'6", 310 guy to play at the kind of pad level necessary. So we may actually see problems with an anchor. It's not directly a strength thing. Yes, there's some overlap between strength and anchor, but anchor is mostly a frame thing and a pad level thing. And you know, basically a quickness of feet thing in a lot of cases as well. So I think Voorhees will be in he's got a good chance to be okay, but I don't think it's a given his size that he'll have a great anchor in the NFL at his first start.
I know he's been in the building and he's been studying and rehabbing like the whole year. I don't know how much he got individual coaching. So I don't know if he's improved his game from college to where we are now. We'll find that out when the season starts.
Yeah. Well, with Live Fire will be our first chance. He's one of the guys I am super excited to see in the preseason. And he should be, for one thing, he should be starting. So whatever the other teams are throwing up against the Ravens as the best they got, you know, for as long as they got are going to play, he'll see some of that. And then it'll be interesting to see how long the Ravens leave him in. But I would expect Voorhees is going to get a half of play in about two of the preseason games. And the third game, he might get less because they're like, okay, we got our guy. Let's wait for the regular season now, not get him hurt. But I think he might see a half of play in the first 2 games while we see a series of play at most from Linderbaum or Ronnie Stanley, you know, if at all.
From the incumbents.
Yeah.
Well, as a defense, looking at the offense, I would attack him. I would attack him because you're the newest part.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you give me the greatest you give me the greatest chance of success of disrupting the play. So they're probably going to go right at him as soon as he enters the game.
Yeah. Right at that A gap and that B gap, both of them, because they're going to want to test Ronnie, see who he is. They're going to want to test him and Linderbaum and the interchanges to see if those are working. But I would agree. I think they're going to go after the left guard on a lot of plays. What else? Now let's move it over to right guard. Give me a percentage chance there that Cleveland outplays 2023 Zeitler.
Well, Zeitler did have a down year as far as pass blocking last year. I think it was about the same or better in the run blocking department. I think Ben Cleveland's actually at least if Zeitler wasn't there, I think he would have started last year. So I think it's a 50-50.
Okay.
I think they're pretty comparable to each other in that Zeitler was just continuity, so he's going to start. Also, he's getting paid more.
With Zeitler, he gave them a ton of continuity factors that I think they're going to really miss, and that's part of why I think the chance of Cleveland being as good, even though he's probably more physically suited for the position at this point in his career, specifically considering Zeitler's injuries, is that Cleveland was very natural at helping Linderbaum make line calls, tap him on the butt when the quarterback's ready for the ball. He understood the pacing of the play at the line of scrimmage and how that it had to get called and then get snapped in time. And they avoided any delay of game penalties last year. Part of that is Jackson, of course. Another part of it is also on the right guard in the center, getting it right together in terms of getting the line set in their blocking assignments. So I think they'll miss some of that, and hopefully Cleveland makes up for it with some physicality and some overwhelming play as a run blocker. And what's going to decide whether Cleveland does it at the NFL level or not is in the end going to be his pass blocking, which was very good at Georgia, and hopefully returning to his Georgia right guard position, he's going to be better at. He did look good there in 2 games last year. I'm hopeful this year. I still say 35% probably that he outplays Zeitler from a year ago, who was just extremely consistent, made very few mistakes. He had a bad start to the season, then he played very well for pretty much the rest of the year. So anyway, while I want to be more optimistic than that, I certainly hope it works out. I think Ben Cleveland, he's a candidate to break out on this team and have a really good 4th year, earn a big contract. It might not go as well as it did for Zeitler last year.
That's true. I mean, there's always a chance of that. Plus, he got blown up by the rookie from the Eagles in preseason.
We're talking about the big one, the gigantic guy, right?
Yeah. He beat him on that one play bad, and then all of the pundits were like, "Well, who is Ben Cleveland?" And I'm like, actually, not that bad. It's just, I'll be like,
okay. We're talking about Jordan Davis, who was drafted ahead of Hamilton. So it would have been a year ago this happened. We're talking about Carter from Georgia.
Jordan Davis is the massive guy. It was the guy they drafted the year after that. So it was last year in the preseason. I think he blew him up for a sack.
All right, might have been Carter. I'll have to go back and take a look at that. Let's move on and talk about the right tackle position. So we have Moses outgoing, who had the best year of any of the Ravens tackles last year. So it was, I always say, 77 for Moses was his raw score for the whole year. Would have been a B or a solid B anyway for the year last year. You drop down to McCary, who was a solid right in the middle of the C range, which, by the way, for a backup tackle, Ravens are lucky to have him. Scoring was all over the place, but to be on average a C is fantastic. And then they had Ronnie Stanley, who had, probably undoubtedly the worst year of his career with a 63 raw score, which would be in the D range. Nothing to like about it at all, except that he played very well at the end of the season. So I guess with Moses, do you see any possibility Rosengarten, or the combination of Rosengarten, Faalele, and potentially even Jones could perform at his level from last year?
Not really. No. If I were to give it a percentage, it depends on who wins the position. So if it's Daniel Faalele, like a 10% chance, 5 maybe. I don't think, I'm giving it, I'm fallible. I'm not God. So, it's possible that he does better. So, you get that 5 to 10% chance, but otherwise, no. And for Roger Rosengarten, he's not a natural right tackle. And he's a rookie. So, I give him a slightly better percent chance, 15. But I don't think either of them would be better than Morgan Moses, especially because Morgan Moses played above average his entire tenure there. Mm-hmm. Daniel Faalele did platoon with him, but there was a reason why he was backup, because he wasn't better than him. Mm-hmm. So I don't expect him to be better than him this year either.
Yeah, all true statements you just made, no doubt about it. And I think people don't realize just how good Morgan Moses was, even playing hurt last year. And I understand that the Ravens didn't want to dish out a bunch of money to re-sign him, and they had to keep him. They had to actually only pay $5.5 million. That was a little surprising to me that they didn't do that. It was probably not surprising to me that they wouldn't want to sign him for more years. So he's not part of an ongoing solution. And if they maybe didn't want to have 2 tackles that they had to replace in 2025, which would have made the situation even worse in a sense. So it was better to have an open position that they could then, start to fix the 2025 left tackle position by having a right tackle or having a left tackle for 25 that starts at right tackle in 24. I can see some wisdom in that. I don't think they took advantage of getting one of the top upside left tackle guys. One of the guys who maybe was more about size and traits, like the guys would be Mims and Guyton and Fatano and players like that who have a lot of size and not a lot of experience necessarily at left tackle, who they could have then moved over. But anyway, they didn't go that route. They went with a second round left tackle who probably was a slight overdraft there. And people have been bitching at me about calling Rosengarten a reach. I mean, he's certainly lower on the consensus boards. All the left tackles had gone. I'm still hopeful that he can be good. And the fact that I think he's a third round pick and other people think he's a second round pick, that's fine. It is what it is. And it's not that much of a difference in terms of what happens, but it was, yeah.
I didn't go back and really look at his grading when he was at left tackle before they moved him over to right tackle. Mm-hmm. I know that he did play at left tackle, I think for 2 seasons. And then when, Penix came, they asked him to move over to the right side to guard his blind side. And I know a lot of people think that tackles are interchangeable, especially if you listen to certain pundits talk, tackles are interchangeable, but they're not. Some people can be moved to either side of the line and play decently well, but the large majority cannot. So that versatility, I think, is part of what attracted the Ravens to him. But I do ultimately think that, he has the build of a left tackle and they want him to be on the left side. As far as moving Morgan off from Morgan Moses, I think they just want to get younger and cheaper because we're paying Lamar.
I'm not aware that Rosengarten played any left tackle in college. I'm sure he played left tackle in high school, but I'm not aware that he played any left tackle in college. If he did, it would have been as a replacement at some point. And if any, obviously, leave a comment if you think that's wrong on the YouTube channel. I'll take a look at it, but I'm not aware of that occurring.
I might be wrong, but from what I remember listening to, I didn't watch any film. I was just listening to people talk about the pick. They said he was a left tackle, and then they moved them over to right tackle. That's what they said.
I wonder. I truly wonder about that. Okay, I'm looking at it now. In his sophomore season, he played exclusively special teams. That doesn't mean he wasn't practicing, by the way. It doesn't mean he wasn't practicing as a left tackle. So, readily admit that. He didn't play at all as a freshman. And in his junior and senior years, it looks like he played only right tackle from this. And I haven't gotten into specific positions to see if he might have had a few left tackle snaps in some game. I have to look at snaps by position to do that, and I don't really want to. And detailed positions would be needed. Right tackle and 3 snaps at right guard in his junior season. And let's see, let's do this real quick. He's got 1 snap at right tackle in week 11 of 2023. That's his entire college time at left tackle.
Okay, so maybe it was in high school that he was a left tackle, but they have ad nauseum going on now about how he was a left tackle that they moved over to right tackle because they wanted him to be on Penix's blind side.
Right. Yeah, and I think that probably did occur. He probably went to Washington fully expecting to be a left tackle and maybe even practiced there early on to be the guy that they would bring in, and I wouldn't doubt that, not even for a second. So your percentage chance that Rosengarten outplays Moses, I think you had it 15%.
I gave it 15%. Yeah. Okay. I don't expect him to be better than Morgan Moses.
All right, I'm saying 20. I think we'll get a good sense of who he is as a pass blocker at the NFL level. See if the mirror holds up to be as good, because we're making all the assumptions that the problem is going to be anchor, and that's where his real problem has been when he's faced good pass rushers in college, has been anchor. If he maintains the feet, I think he can bulk up, get better. I think the fact that they got Linderbaum to be a decent pass blocker in his second year, to be a good pass blocker in his second year, is a great indicator, great portent for what might happen with Rosengarten and what the Ravens can do for him in terms of helping him get anchor. It's probably also great portent for Voorhees and his anchor, but we got to see it actually happen.
In both cases, well, we don't know about Voorhees, but in the Linderbaum case, that happened after the season was over. So
After 1 year was done, and his
Yeah.
second year he was good, and that's okay. I don't mind waiting a year for it. I want to see some evidence that the mirror is everybody's good as we thought it is in year one, and I want the anchor to be somewhat good. One of the things, a bad anchor just really can be a horrific thing, because if you start getting pushed around in the pocket, it's a big injury risk for your fellow linemen. You get pushed onto the back of people's legs that way. You just cannot have that. It's a huge continuity risk to your offensive line to have it occur.
I agree. So for the most, what we've gone over, I believe that they'll keep 9.
Okay, so who are they going to keep? Let's go with that.
So we got our starting 5:
Mhm.
Ronnie, Ben, Tyler Linderbaum, Andrew Voorhees, and either Roger Rosengarten or Daniel Faulele, whoever wins the job. Then Josh Jones and Patrick McCarry and Nick Samet.
And you're adding Jones and Samet because you said them already. Okay, so that gets you to 9, and so that doesn't leave you with any others. So who's out of a job?
I think. I think they're going to try to put Salah on the practice squad.
Makes sense to me.
And then what are the other guys? Tayshawn Manning. If they keep him, I think he's practice squad. And the other guy, he's the massive dude. He's like almost 400 pounds. What's his name?
It sounds like you're talking about Faulele, but you're not.
No. He was a guy that was on the practice squad last year. Let me see. Might still Takeem Doss.
Takeem Doss. Okay, so you're right. Takeem Doss about 380. They have Darian Dalcourt also as a UDFA this year from Alabama. So probably a practice squad guy, and maybe those 3 guys are fighting for 2 practice squad spots if you had to guess. And then they've got, let's see, we talked about all 3 of those, and then we'd be a tackle, and we're talking about Julian Pearl, the 6'6", 313 rookie out of Illinois, probably a practice squad guy, and Daryl Simpson out of Tulsa is another tackle. So they've got a few practice squad guys, but I think Tayshawn Manning is the bubble guy, and I think that's you've identified him correctly. First of all, they're a little bit short on interior linemen, and they are a little bit heavy on tackles. If they want Jones in the tackle position, and then you really have 3 backup tackles, and given Ravens history, I'm not sure that's a bad thing, but it's using up 5 of your 9 spots on tackles is a little unusual. And I fully agree with you that Salah is head of the practice squad this year. He's a developmental player in year 2. It doesn't bode well.
I think Josh Jones is the first man up for either guard position and an emergency backup tackle for either tackle position. But I don't think he's the primary backup tackle for either tackle position. I just think he's the third option.
The contract says depth. It doesn't say he's going to be around here for a long time. It's a 1-year contract, $1.8 million roughly, where he has about a $600,000 in guaranteed signing bonus. So they're going to keep him. But unless, I guess, things could go terribly wrong in the preseason, and they might not even keep him. They might just say, okay, no, we thought this was somebody else. He's not ready to play. If I guess that's conceivable, but more likely is he almost certainly will not get playing time, and he's a guy the Ravens hide basically for the entire year. I guess they might re-sign him as depth, but I don't think the move here by Josh Jones is one that's going to do him a lot of good in terms of winning a left tackle role somewhere else in the future.
I don't think he's going to win a left tackle role. I think the best scenario for him is if somebody doesn't play well, probably at right tackle, and that he takes over and plays well there. But I think the Ravens primarily have him as a backup guard and emergency tackle.
All right. Well, you're definitely showing some legitimate concerns with the offensive line replacements. I'll just finish with, can the Ravens running game be as good given the changes made? Obviously, bringing Derrick Henry should provide a boost in terms of being able to do this, but Henry really suffered in his years at Tennessee, not getting first contact opportunities in level 2, particularly recently, and not getting first contact opportunities in level 2. And for 3 years now, he's been hovering around a 46% success rate, while the Ravens have been well north of 50% with Lamar Jackson and with players like Gus Edwards and some, guys who are not the top backs in the league getting it done. Gus Edwards, by the way, highest success rate in NFL history. Highest success rate in NFL history. They let him go for Henry. So it's an interesting move, and one that really, I think, magnifies the value of Lamar Jackson in a way that should make it clear to other people, including one MVP outlier in terms of the voting, just how valuable Lamar is to this offense.
So whether or not the running game will take a step back, I think it'll probably be I think it might be marginally better, even with the right tackle play not being as good as it was with Morgan Moses. I think both guards will be as good as their people they're replacing, if not better. But because of the Lamar Jackson factor and the Derrick Henry factor, I do think the run game will actually improve, especially if we mix more passes into all of our formations. And Derrick Henry being a good pass blocker, I think leans into that. So I think overall the run game will be better because the pass game will be better.
Okay. I like that. I probably would like it even more if the pass game's better because the run game's better. So, basically the Lamar, Derrick Henry mesh point risk will force linebackers to take additional read steps towards the line of scrimmage and then have their oh crap moment where the ball is going over their heads to a tight end. I love the possibility of play action really helping this. And, Derrick Henry, the pass blocker, should really be able to help with that too. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, I do think the offense will take another step forward this year. Second year, Todd Monken's offense. So.
All right. Pleasure talking football with you as always, Kisuke. Great topic, by the way. Great for that you came up with this one initially for the first show, and I hope other people have a concern that's as good, because I think this is really worth discussing. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
So mostly you're going to want to email me, face_off@me.com. I'm never on X. I talk to you on X, and you alone.
Well, I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate you coming on the show. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a film study short, hit me up. We'll still have a little time to do maybe one more or two more concern shows. So hit me up with that very quickly. If you're hearing this episode, I probably will have already recorded most of those shows, but please get to me and I'll get back to you very quickly. Kisuke, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.